They demolished his bridge while he stood on it, sipping Earl Grey from his favorite mug like a man watching Rome burn from the front row. Judge Harrison Montgomery didn't even flinch. At 75, the retired federal justice had faced down drug lords and corrupt senators. A bulldozer was nothing. He simply stepped off the final plank seconds before the centuries-old wood splintered beneath the machine's metal teeth, watching as Revolutionary War quarry stones tumbled into the creek below. His weathered hands, the same ones that had spent decades restoring this piece of history, remained steady. Not a drop of tea spilled. "They just declared war on the wrong federal judge," he said quietly. I'd driven up for our monthly Saturday breakfast, only to arrive at this scene of destruction. The old Yale Law hoodie he wore over plaid pajama pants made Uncle Harrison look deceptively harmless, just another retiree enjoying a peaceful morning. But I knew better. Behind those calm blue eyes, a legal storm was brewing. I was 6 years old when I first crossed that bridge. It was the summer after my parents died, and I'd come to live with Uncle Harrison, Judge Harry, to his colleagues, but simply Montgomery, to a child who didn't understand titles yet. "Hold my hand," he'd said that misty morning, leading me toward the wooden structure spanning the creek. I remember being afraid, the rushing water below, the creaking planks, the vastness of an uncertain future. "Is it safe?" I'd asked, clutching his massive hand. He'd knelt down, eye level with me. "Elizabeth, a man's word should be like this bridge, solid, straight, and built to endure. This bridge has stood for generations because someone cared enough to build it right. Just like I'm going to care for you." In the 27 years since, that bridge had become more than wood and stone. It was the physical embodiment of a promise kept. Every Sunday, Uncle Harrison worked on replacing planks, reinforcing supports, preserving history plank by plank, stone by stone. Now, in minutes, it was gone. "What happened?" I asked, though the bright orange bulldozer with property of Silver Creek HOA emblazoned on its side told much of the story. "Victoria Harrington happened," Harrison replied, setting his mug down on a nearby stump. "Our new HOA president believes my bridge offends her vision of suburban perfection." The bridge in question had stood for nearly a century, connecting Harrison's property to the historic walking path that meandered through our small Pennsylvania town. It wasn't fancy, just hand-hewn cedar planks supported by stone pillars that predated the Declaration of Independence. But it meant something to our family, to the community, to history itself. "But this isn't even HOA property," I stammered, anger rising. "This is your land." Harrison nodded, eyes never leaving the destruction. That particular legal detail didn't concern MS. "Harrington." When I reached for my phone to call the police, Harrison placed a hand on my arm. "Not yet," he said. "Sometimes justice requires patience." What I didn't realize then was that Uncle Harrison had been expecting this. For 3 months, Victoria Harrington, a hedge fund executive who'd moved to our small town from Manhattan, had been targeting the bridge with escalating threats. First came violation notices, then fines, then a cease and desist letter bearing what Harrison recognized as a forged county seal. He documented everything, filed responses citing historical preservation codes, land surveys, and his own property deed. He'd even invited the County Historical Society to officially designate the bridge as a heritage site. The paperwork was approved just last week, which was precisely why Victoria had acted now. She knew she was losing the paper war, so she'd escalated to actual demolition. What she didn't know was the man she was up against. As we walked back to the house, I noticed something unusual, a small camera hidden in the branches of an oak tree, its lens pointed directly at the bridge site. "You were recording?" I asked. "I've been recording everything for weeks," Harrison replied. Time-stamped, geotagged, and automatically uploaded to 3 separate secure servers, including this morning's event. Inside, his dining room had transformed into a war room. Land surveys dating back to 1783. Historical preservation documentation. HOA bylaws with certain sections highlighted. A timeline of every interaction with Victoria, every letter sent and received. "She doesn't know you this well," I said, understanding finally dawning. Harrison allowed himself a small smile, the kind prosecutors feared in his courtroom days. Few people do. Just then, a car door slammed outside. Through the window, we watched Victoria strutting up the walkway, clipboard in hand, a younger man in an ill-fitting suit trailing behind her. "Right on cue," Harrison murmured, straightening his hoodie. "Let's welcome our visitors." Victoria didn't wait for an invitation. She rapped sharply on the door and then immediately pushed it open, her voice preceding her into the house. "Judge Montgomery, I'm sure you've noticed the community improvement project we completed this morning. I brought the paperwork explaining why." She stopped short, seeing the dining room table covered in documents. "Ms. Harrington," Harrison said pleasantly, "I believe we've discussed the importance of respecting property boundaries. That applies to both bridges and front doors." The man behind her stepped forward, extending a business card. "Wesley Chambers, Harrington Legal Solutions. I represent the HOA in this matter." Harrison glanced at the card and set it down without comment. "I don't recall inviting either of you into my home. We're here on official HOA business," Victoria said, holding up her clipboard like a shield. "The bridge was in violation of Code 15.7, unsightly structures. We provided ample notice." "The bridge," Harrison interrupted softly, "was on my property outside HOA jurisdiction and protected under the Historical Preservation Act as of last Tuesday." He pointed to one of the documents on the table, the official historical designation, complete with county seal. "The real one, not the forgery you attached to your last notice." Victoria's face flushed. "You can't prove. I have video of you instructing the bulldozer operator to how did you phrase it? Take it down before the old man wakes up. Recorded this morning at 6:43 a.m. The silence that followed was delicious. Victoria's confident posture crumbled as Harrison calmly walked to his laptop and turned it to face her. There she was, in 4K resolution, pointing at the bridge and explicitly ordering its destruction while falsely claiming to have county approval. "You should know," Harrison continued, "that impersonating county officials by forging documents is a federal offense, as is destruction of a historically protected structure, as is trespassing, as is... This is just an HOA matter. We can settle this within the organization." Harrison leaned back, studying them. "Ms. Harrington, when you decided to make that bridge your personal crusade, did you bother to research who I was before I retired?" Her silence was answer enough. "For 30 years, I presided over the Eastern District Federal Court. Before that, I was a prosecutor who specialized in cases against public officials who abused their authority." He paused. "I don't bluff, Ms. Harrington. And this stopped being just an HOA matter when you brought heavy machinery onto my property without permission." The color drained from Victoria's face. Behind her, Wesley was already edging toward the door. "You have exactly 3 days," Harrison said, "to call an emergency HOA meeting, resign your position, and propose a full restoration of the bridge at HOA expense. If you do, I might consider not pursuing criminal charges." "You can't," Victoria began. "I already have," Harrison replied, holding up his phone. "I filed the police report electronically while we've been talking. Officers Martinez and Chun should be pulling up right about." The flash of blue lights through the window punctuated his sentence. "Now." Victoria didn't call the emergency meeting. Instead, she doubled down, filing a countersuit claiming harassment and sending an email blast to all residents painting Harrison as a dangerous obstructionist threatening our community values. It was exactly what he'd anticipated. "She's a narcissist," Harrison explained over breakfast the next morning. "Incapable of admitting error. It means she'll keep making mistakes and will document every one." I asked. "I may need assistance," he admitted. "My courtroom days are behind me. That's how I found myself helping Uncle Harrison build a case that would become legend in our town." We gathered statements from neighbors who'd faced similar intimidation from Victoria. We uncovered financial records showing she diverted HOA funds for personal expenses. Most damning of all, We discovered she'd created a shell company that had bid on and won all HOA landscaping contracts since she became president. While we built our case, Victoria escalated her campaign. She placed a chain across the path leading to where the bridge had stood, claiming it was now restricted for safety reasons. She sent notices threatening fines against any resident seen visiting Harrison's property. When old Mrs. Donovan from down the street brought Harrison a homemade pie, she received a $350 fine for unauthorized food delivery. Our town was becoming a battleground with residents forced to choose sides. Most stayed silent out of fear, but small acts of resistance emerged. Anonymous donations toward rebuilding the bridge appeared in Harrison's mailbox. Neighbors accidentally misdirected landscapers away from Victoria's property. When she called a meeting to amend the HOA bylaws, granting herself emergency powers, mysteriously only her allies received the notification. Through it all, Harrison remained unruffled, building his case with methodical precision. Legal battles aren't won through emotion, he reminded me. They're won through preparation. The final straw came 6 weeks after the bridge demolition. Victoria filed a motion to have Harrison's property rezoned as common area, effectively attempting to seize his land through bureaucratic maneuvering. It was brazen, illegal, and exactly the overreach we'd been waiting for. Now, Harrison said, closing the certified letter containing the rezoning notice, we go to court. Judge Eleanor Blackwood peered over her reading glasses at the packed courtroom. It seemed our entire town had turned out for Montgomery v. Harrington. On one side sat Victoria with her attorney, still projecting confidence despite the mounting evidence against her. On the other, Harrison sat alone at the plaintiff's table, a single leather portfolio before him. I'd offered to find him legal representation, but he'd declined. Some things, he'd said, a man needs to do himself. Judge Blackwood, a no-nonsense woman with 30 years on the bench, began proceedings by addressing the elephant in the room. Judge Montgomery, while I respect your decision to represent yourself, I must confirm, you're certain you wish to proceed without counsel? Harrison rose, buttoning his suit jacket. I am, Your Honor. Some lessons in justice should be delivered personally. For 3 days, the case unfolded like a masterclass in legal strategy. Harrison presented evidence methodically: the forged documents, the video of the demolition, financial records showing misappropriation of HOA funds. He called witnesses who testified about Victoria's pattern of intimidation and retribution. Curtis, the bulldozer operator who destroyed the bridge, proved particularly damaging to Victoria's defense. She told me the demolition was county approved. He testified, visibly nervous. Said I didn't need to see the paperwork, that it was all handled. Paid me cash, twice my usual rate, to do it early morning before anyone was around. But it was when Victoria took the stand that the full extent of Harrison's strategy became clear. He questioned her with surgical precision, never raising his voice, each question building upon the last, until she contradicted her earlier statements. So to clarify, Harrison said, pacing slowly before the witness stand, you testified earlier that you believed the bridge posed a safety hazard, which justified emergency action without board approval. Yet in this email sent to board member Phillips, he held up a printed email. You wrote, and I quote, "The bridge is structurally sound but ruins the aesthetic I'm trying to create. Once it's gone, Montgomery won't have the resources or energy to fight us." The courtroom fell silent. Victoria's attorney attempted to object, but the damage was done. By the final day, even Victoria's most loyal supporters had abandoned her. Her attorney looked defeated, barely mounting objections as Harrison delivered his closing argument. This case is not about a bridge, Harrison told the hushed courtroom. It's about the abuse of power, no matter how small the stage. About what happens when we allow bullies to define our communities. About the courage it takes to stand up and say, not here, not in my town, not on my watch. Judge Blackwood needed only 2 hours to reach her verdict. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff on all counts, she announced. The HOA is ordered to pay $310,000 in damages for destruction of protected property, plus $85,000 for legal harassment and emotional distress. The court further orders the complete restoration of the historical bridge to its original specifications under the supervision of the County Historical Society. But the judge wasn't finished. Looking directly at Victoria, she added, "Given the evidence of fraud, document forgery, and misappropriation of funds, I am referring this matter to the district attorney for criminal investigation." MS. Harrington is permanently barred from serving on any homeowners association or similar organization within this jurisdiction. The gavel fell like thunder. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered, hungry for statements. Victoria slipped out a side door, ignoring their questions. Harrison, however, stood on the steps, bathed in autumn sunlight. "Judge Montgomery, how does it feel to win?" a reporter called out. Harrison considered this. "It feels like remembering who we are," he said finally. "In small towns and big cities across this country, we must remind ourselves that community means looking out for each other, not controlling each other. That rules exist to protect us, not to be weapons. And that sometimes standing your ground is the most neighborly thing you can do." The rebuilding began the following spring. Not just physical reconstruction, but communal healing. Neighbors who had stayed silent during Victoria's reign showed up with tools and food. Old Mr. Donovan, who hadn't left his house in years, directed operations from a lawn chair. Young families brought children who handed out lemonade to workers. Standing on the banks of the creek, watching the community rebuild what one person had torn down, I asked Harrison if the victory had been worth the fight. He gazed thoughtfully at the new cedar planks being fitted to the restored stone pillars. "You know, my years on the bench, I saw many battles. Big cases, national headlines. But this," he gestured toward our neighbors working together, "this might be the most important case I ever fought." "Because of the bridge?" I asked. "Because some things look small but carry great weight," he replied. "That bridge connects more than two pieces of land. It connects us to our past and to each other. It reminds us that what we build matters, and that standing against those who would destroy it matters even more." I thought back to that day when I was 6, afraid to cross the bridge, and how he'd held my hand the whole way. 6 months later, on a perfect summer morning, our town gathered for the official reopening of the restored bridge. It stood stronger than before, each plank and stone a testament to resilience. As Uncle Harrison cut the ceremonial ribbon, Mrs. Donovan presented him with a small bronze plaque that would be affixed to the bridge's entrance. It read, "Built with history, destroyed by arrogance, restored by justice and community. Some things cannot be broken." Harrison, never one for excessive sentiment, read it twice and nodded. "Perfect," he said. And as he took the first steps across the rebuilt bridge, the entire town followed a community reconnected, stronger for having been tested, wiser for having prevailed. That evening, Harrison and I sat on his porch, watching fireflies dance over the creek and the bridge that now gleamed in the twilight. "You know," he said, sipping his Earl Grey, "Victoria did us a favor in the end. A favor." I couldn't hide my surprise. She reminded us what matters. His eyes crinkled at the corners. "Sometimes you don't appreciate what you have until someone tries to bulldoze it." I laughed. And in that moment, I understood the most important lesson of all. True victory isn't just about winning the case, it's about strengthening the connections that make a community worth fighting for in the first place. Some bridges, it turns out, can never truly be torn down. When they tried to erase history, they accidentally created a legend.